Hello, this is Sam Freak Zone Games here doing a recording of my voice for the first time in a long time because I haven't done my podcast in ages or anything because it's been crazy around these parts. Getting a whole lot of work done, but I'm here to show off a little bit of Angry Video Game Nerd 1 and 2 Deluxe and kind of talk about the development and stuff while you guys are waiting for the release. And actually going to upload something to my YouTube channel, which is, I mean, it's been years, I think. But yeah, I'm here. I've got some beer, which seems appropriate to be drinking while playing this. It's not Rolling Rock though. It's called Hyde and Wild. It's a nice pale ale, and I mean, there's Mr. Hyde and it's Hyde and Wild. I suppose it's close enough. And I am using a piece of crap microphone. So if you hear like popping and clicking and stuff, I apologize. I'll get a better one for my podcast eventually. It's all coming back soon. We've had a lot of catching up to do over here at Freak Zone Games. I say we. I've had a lot of catching up to do with things, and it's all coming soon. It's all coming out, and this is the deluxe version of Angry Video Game Nerd 1 and 2, and I'm so excited. Let's go. Just a quick look in there. We got more options now. You can go full screen or not. You know, you can adjust your volumes and things as before, but we have here a couple of accessibility options, which I'm really pleased with. We can turn photosensitive mode on, which basically turns off flickering and flashing. There's a lot of strobing in the game, which I think it's, in a way, it's important for the retro feel, but also it's good feedback on when you're, hurting the enemies and things like that. But certain people weren't able to play it because it would give them headaches, or even, some people had epilepsy, so that at least there's that option there now. I would recommend, unless you have photosensitivity issues, I recommend having that off because some feedback isn't quite as good then. But we've also got the option to disable screen shake for if that makes you dizzy. Post-processing effects as well, which some people don't like. There's a kind of, in AVGN 2 and also in this version of AVGN 1, there's kind of a slight effect where the color separates at the edges of the screen. I wanted it to look kind of glitchy, not like fully CRT or overwhelming or whatever, just a kind of old retro-y, slightly glitchy look. It's relatively subtle for the most part, but if you don't like it, you can turn it off, and you can change your controls on the PC version as well, because there is no standard for PC controllers still. But we got options like that, but let's get into the good stuff, right? So, you got if save game select, so it's the same file select as AVGN 2 effectively, but it works for both games, but you have one save game across both games, so your progress is kind of shared. So you can see here we got the nerd on the left with all of his add-ons for AVGN 2, but we also have on the bottom right there, you can see the 3 unlockable characters in AVGN 1, as well as the AVGN 2 unlockable 6 pieces, which so it kind of brings the two games together, and there's a reason for it. You'll see things like unlock as you beat them and stuff like that. But let's do a new game. And you got difficulty settings, and it's not exactly the same as before. One of my highest priorities in doing this updated version of the game is difficulty balancing, because I don't get me wrong, we're very, very proud of the original game's challenge. We love that it gave people a good challenge and an old school challenge. In a way, a lot of other games that are challenging didn't. But there are parts where it was so spiky in difficulty. It had difficulty spikes. The death blocks were crazy and stuff. And I felt that a few things maybe were a bit too old school, such as the limited number of lives in a game with so many harsh deaths and things like that. So the difficulty's been shuffled around a little bit. So what we're looking at here, normal, this is the mode that I want most people to play on. This is the game that I and Cinemassacre and Screenwave made, basically, and of course the people at Screw Attack as well with the original game. But what we're looking at here now is we've got easy, which is as it says below, ain't got time for the shit, hey, no problem. So this is just for, if it's too much for you, we got this option. Normal is the game I want you to play. As it says, they're challenging as the asshole developers intended. So it's tough. It is tough, but it has some quality of life improvements that I personally kind of wanted at the beginning, but everybody's got different tastes in things. But if you love the original game as it was, I've got your back. Old school is almost exactly as it was. A couple of little layout improvements and things like that, but the old school mode will give you the same layout of death blocks as you originally had and things like that. So if you see at the top here, where it says difficulty, there's an icon that changes. We've got these spiked balls, and then once you go to old school, it becomes extra death blocks. And that is because basically there are these, I'll show you in the actual gameplay, but once you go to old school, you get the original death block layouts from the old version of the game, which I, even at the time, thought was a little excessive. But hey, if you love it, you've got it there. You just got to go to the harder difficulties, and it's as it was. It also means that in old school, you have a limited number of lives, things like that, as it was the original game. So effectively, old school and higher plays like the original game. And the other difficulties are, you know, you use your one life, one chance, originally called YOLO, things like that. So similar to as it was, but we just have this little divide here where you can go to the really harsh original game. But we're going to go on normal, and you'll see what I mean. You're going to choose your game. We've got Angry Video Game Nerd Adventures Remastered and Angry Video Game Nerd 2 Re-Assimilated. And there's something over on the right there. Just a little something. I'm not going to tell you what that is. Let's go for AVGN 1. I can see here that Lucky Softworks, aka Lucky Cassette, he's upgraded the opening animations. Jesus, there's no animation here. The opening slides here, he's kind of given them a bit of an overhaul and turned Mike's art into much better pixel art than I made it into. There we go. Okay, so you probably noticed this actually looks, if you're fond of AVGN 1, this looks probably quite different to you, because AVGN 1 here is not a port. I have remade Angry Video Game Nerd 1 almost from scratch. I say not from scratch because the assets were taken out of the original game, imported into Angry Video Game Nerd 2, which was done in the Unity engine, and I rebuilt all of the levels in AVGN 2, and we just took the opportunity to make some improvements while we were there. Here's Naggy, the patronizing firefly. She's naggy because she nags. See nice particle effects on her there. Just got all those lovely particle effects. These new backgrounds as well. These were Anthony at Lucky Softworks. We brought in his help so that I didn't have to. So I had some actual time. That was As You Remember, but with some of the AVGN 2 effects. We also got the rocks from AVGN 2, so they bounce and they're actually relatively useful. The rocks were supposed to be a crap power-up, basically. The idea was it almost became an enemy because you wanted to avoid it so it wouldn't overwrite your power-up. And we got kegs in AVGN 1, which was an AVGN 2 power-up, but it's the Estus Flask of Dark Souls. It refills your health when it's low, but, you know, you can lose it if you overwrite with another power-up. But yeah, they're there in AVGN 2, but again, a lot of the things that weren't in AVGN 1 originally that make it a little more fair. If you don't like those, just select the higher difficulties and they're all gone. There's a glitch gremlin again, and he's doing his thing, but it glitches the whole screen out now. And that's the joys of Unity. Super Mega Death Christ doing his thing. Here's tutorial, same as always. These green guys here in the original version of the game. We stayed up late trying to fix a bug with them in the original version back in 2011, whenever it was. It was me and Chad James up late, and these guys just kept floating off. You just walk along the screen and you just see the guy just float along the top of the screen. It was always one of these guys. So we actually dubbed them Little Green Bitches because they were so annoying, and that was one of the last bugs we fixed. As a change there, you see that the stage clear screen comes over the actual game screen rather than its own screen, and you can see all of the features of AVGN 2. And it is Gameland. I remember this place. But looks a little bit nicer. But here's when things start to look a little different. Right, so we're going to go for Asylvania. It's the first level that most people pick, and I'm drinking Hyde and Wild, so I want to fight Mr. Hyde. And I'm going to show you how things have changed. Obviously the new backgrounds already as well. So again, this is all like rebuilt, so certain things are slightly different about the physics and stuff. We have made sure that everything still plays as close as possible, but with the improvements of AVGN 2, you can see the absolute bloodbath when you kill the enemies, thanks to Angry Video Game Nerd 2's physics and particles. And you see there at the end, there's NERD cartridges, which were another AVGN 2 feature. It's like the KONG in Donkey Kong Country. There's 4 in every level. You want to pick them all up. See if you can unlock something. Just like a little rewarding thing. It'll show you on the map which ones you have and haven't picked up. It's for completionist's sake. Those guys' animations are a little different. And this part here, I have changed the way it's laid out a little, because this, as the nerd flipping me off there, this section, it was a long time ago I made Angry Video Game Nerd 1, and my level design has improved a lot since, but this particular section, whenever I watch Let's Plays, this was supposed to be particularly challenging to get through this part without taking damage. When I watched Let's Plays, there were some sort of blocks here where you had to jump over, and what people would do, they would stand here and just mash the fire button, and the occasional bullet would get through the gap and hit this guy. What I wanted players to do was to jump over here, get through here, just find the time to get to him like that. But everybody stood over here, so what I've done, I've just removed those blocks so that you can, if you want to, you can do that, but you're also encouraged to just go forward. It's a lot easier to get the timing there. I don't think that removing that is damage the challenge. In fact, it's just taking out a crappy piece of level design. It is similar with one more block here as well, because originally in this part you were supposed to do that. For the first level that people were choosing, what people were doing, I found that they would stand right on the very edge here. This block here wasn't there, and so they would stand on the very edge here and shoot at him. So if that's what everybody's doing, might as well give them a block so it doesn't look like they have to kind of cheat. There's a couple of little changes here as well, because there was just some slight awkwardness in some level layout here. Just spikes that didn't need to be there because it was already... You get the idea. And here is where things get interesting, because this is the point where a lot of people, understandably, checked out in Angry Video Game Nerd Adventures originally. Because these here, these on my right here, I'm going to walk into these. These are instant death blocks, as I'm sure a lot of you know. But touch them, you die, no matter how much health you have. Now, I always quite like the idea of that, because it's... A lot of games have, like, say, attacks that take off more damage than other attacks and things like that. And a lot of platformers, they have the bottomless pit, where at the bottom of the screen, if you fall down a bottomless pit, you die instantly, no matter how much health you have. But in Angry Video Game Nerd, in Angry Video Game Nerd Adventures, rather, you had these things which, once you came across these things, it was the oh shit moment. This is where it's like, now I've got to really slow down and really be careful, because it doesn't matter how much health I've stocked, these things will get me. And I like the idea. However, towards the end of development, originally we made it harder and harder and harder, to the point where sections where nobody was having any trouble, we just, in the time we had, we kind of decked them out with just tons of these death blocks appearing and disappearing and stuff. And it was pretty harsh, and I feel that combined with the fact that you had limited lives, so you had 30 attempts at this and it was game over. Most people used up those lives, got to the boss at the end of this stage, which is, I mean, you can do the stages in any order you want, but it's the top left, it's the one that people do first. You lose all your lives getting up to the boss, then you die to the boss, and you've got to do it all over again, and everybody checked out. And so, if you loved it that way, and you can play the old school difficulty, or higher, and these death blocks will all be back, and you have your limited lives as was. But right now, I've got these spike balls here, which they take off 1 unit of health, just like any other damage thing. And in a lot of places where there was a ridiculous number of instant death blocks, I'm using these. And the nice thing is, all of these things in the actual engine, they have a piece of code in them that just says, if the difficulty is old school or higher, just switch them out for death blocks. So you get back to what it originally was. So everybody wins. And one of the things you gotta remember in game devs is when you're testing your own game, well, you're always the best at your own game. It's because testing it and testing it and testing it, you... I say as I die. Testing it and testing and testing it, you get better and better. You know exactly the characters' like speed and acceleration and all of this. I'm sucking right now as I say this. This is what they say with Let's Plays, isn't it? It's like it's a lot harder when you're talking about it. But yeah, you get better and better. You kind of become blind to how difficult something is and if it is fair or not. And Oh! And see, here's the real joy, right? And this was something I did want in the original, but the guys at Screw Attack, understandably, because they wanted something super, super old school, they really wanted limited lives. Because they felt that death doesn't mean anything in the game if your lives are... here he is. Oh shit, Pickle over here. Off you go. If you have a limited number of lives, then a death means something. And also the sort of the hard to reach 1-up is such a coveted thing, right? And the 1-ups are still in the harder difficulties, and you still get game over in the harder difficulties. But I felt in a game like this, even without the excessive death blocks, you should have as many chances as you need to get through this. Because it's harsh, but it's rewarding, and yeah. So again, these are changes made to the normal difficulty. If you liked it as it was, select old school or higher, and you're good. Love these backgrounds, these new backgrounds here, really nice. And okay, so here we come up to oh, I've saved a Super Mecha Death Christ and a Super Scope. So Mr. Oh crap, well, yeah, didn't think about it, just did it. So Mr. Hyde here is slightly different because he used to have a preset path of jumps, but now his jumps are AI based, so he chooses the direction in which he jumps based on your position, so you can't predict him as easily, you've got to kind of react. And so the bosses they're the same, but they have little tweaks and things like that, just to remixes the challenge for people that played the original, and it kind of makes them a bit more interesting for people that didn't, because I got NER. Those are the cartridges I collected. You can see my best time on there. That time will change to whatever my best time is when I replay it. Yeah, so it should be interesting for everybody, because there are changes. I cited the Resident Evil remake a few times when doing this, and that there's just changes that surprise people that played the original, and there's also the changes just that improve on it. But if you love the original, you can get it closer to the original by selecting the harder difficulties. What stage should we go to? Let's do Happy Fun Candy Time. Happy son. This level actually, contrary to what my instinct is to do with graphics, this level is actually less saturated than it used to be. The colors are more muted because I think it makes it look more sweet and edible. The music we kept the music exactly the same. We didn't remix the music. People love this soundtrack, and I think it's well suited to the game. It's good as it is. We've got these nice waterfall particles where the water hits the platforms and stuff. I think it works great. It's like camera differences there. It goes a bit Shovel Knight. If the sound sounds a little bit off, it's not that the sound of the game is low quality or filtered or anything. It's because I am not a video editor, so I decided to just have my microphone pick up the audio from my computer while I play it, rather than do all the editing, because I suck. I'll tell you something though. Again, watching Let's Plays of the original, there was a lot of inspiration from games like, say, Barn Hawkins and the 1,000 Spikes, or as it's now known, 1001 Spikes. But something about the way I designed this versus the way 1001 Spikes was designed, I think 1001 Spikes maybe telegraphed a few things better. And I've tried to improve it a little on here, but for example, these spikes here, everybody just tries to run and tries to make it to the end. I'm going to die now to refill my health. Everybody tries to make it to the end before the spikes pop back up. But what you're really supposed to do, what I want the player to do, is to do this. It's like learn the timing and just jump when. But I don't think I did enough originally to make that clear. So the layout here is just made a little bit more obvious what you're supposed to do, and it's also a little bit more fair if you don't work that out. Oh, the way those little kittens just explode into blood. Right. These are Barney's missing testicles. Fuck them up. this bit is interesting as well because, oh look, would you look at that? Object permanence. When they go off the screen, they still count, at least to a certain point. Originally we had the you have to land on them while they're on screen thing, touch button screen, you die. It's maybe that makes it easier, but I just found that part to be a little obnoxious. I mean, wasn't that it was challenging, it was kind of annoying. And anyway, for the most part, you'll fight the same bosses that you always did in the original version. Here and there, you just might get a little surprise. Oh no, I'm just going to drop out of there. I don't know what that was all about. Any others we can take a quick look at. So we'll go to Boo Haunted House. Because I love this level, and I love the way this level looks now. The way that the limited view changes the color palette. We got like a color correction curve, so you got a warmer color closer to where you're standing, and it turns to sort of blue further when you get further away. And I just think it just looks really interesting and different, and look at this, it's cool. I mean to be tooting my own horn, as you say, but it's just, I feel a lot more proud of this version of the game. I mean, I always loved the game, and I loved the work we did with Screw Attack. But I've been really excited to just see just how much we've been able to improve with this thing. Let's go to Future Fuckballs over here. So this stage has some crazy effects. We've used like bloom effects and things like that to like bring that like laser 1980s kind of vibe, because this stage was always all about what we thought the future would be like, or rather what sci-fi treated the future like in the 80s. As they say, the future ain't what it used to be. And there was the episode Street Fighter 2010 of AVGen, which had this sort of 2010 setting of being like really futuristic and sci-fi. And I mean, 2010 was 10 years ago now. And so we kept this level's name as Future Fuckballs 2010, and we got jokes about that and everything. And but this like overbloomed effect and this kind of neon thing we've got going on, I think it invokes that more than it did in the original, but it's also looks pretty cool, I think. I toned it down a little because in the original versions that we released before, it was maybe a little overbloomed in parts. What else have we got? I think this level looks nice too. It's love these new backgrounds. Again, Screamwave were really kind enough to like provide pay for another pixel artist to help out, because I mean I like the way the game looks, AVGen looks and things. I think it needed to look sort of 12-bit, so to speak, just sort of general retro, not Super Nintendo, not Nintendo, but just kind of an old school look, and a little bit corny, a little bit like a bad game. The idea is he's trapped in a shitty game, but also I think that some of my backgrounds were I wasn't great at pixel art at the time, and we brought in Anthony to help out with the backgrounds to save me from having to do them all, whilst also remaking the entire damn thing from scratch. We also upgraded the backgrounds from AVGen 2 as well, so both games look great now. But this one, I do really like the way this looks, and coupled with some slight bloom effects, it gives you that glowing kind of fantasy forest feel. And then, oh dear lord, I still love this room. I added a line there because that's such an old episode of AVGen that references now. But if people haven't seen it, they'll at least get a laugh out of the nerd just going, oh, fuck this shit. Oh, and I got shat on. Where am I going? I'm going to play AVGen 2. These backgrounds, these new slates are still being worked on, so Anthony hasn't upgraded these ones yet, but he has a couple. These don't need upgrading as much because they were a little better to begin with, but yeah, this one's been improved. There was just, when you take, because this was Mike's line art. He drew there's a police outside for some reason, coming to arrest me for being too awesome. This one wasn't, but these were Mike's hand drawings, and they were brilliant, and I effectively converted them to pixel art, but at the time it was sort of, use the threshold filter in Photoshop and then color it in, and at least there's some like fuzzy edges and some jaggies, as they say, just an awkward look, and Anthony's really come in and cleaned those up and just improved things. And here's the thing that I'm really pleased about with AVGN 2. This stage was the most hand-holdiest tutorial, and I've been allowed to completely de-tutorialize it. Because, firstly, I don't think it was needed in the first place the way it was. But secondly, even more so if you've just played through AVGN 1, which you probably have at least played the tutorial if you select 2. So Mike here shows up and tells you every single thing, and originally he would make you, your feet would plant on the spot, you'd freeze in the spot, and you'd have to read what Mike said, and then there were parts where you had to get something right before it would even let you progress, and here's what happens here, now. So he stops here. How did you get here? Press the jump button to shut the fuck up, I know how to jump this, and you're already in control. So it doesn't stop you anymore. There's plenty of opportunities to work things out in this game, and yeah, so that's an improvement I'm really, really pleased about, and I understand why people want tutorials. I really, really do, and we need some kind of tutorial in any game. But I think publishers, they get nervous, they get worried that people won't work it out, and so they basically lock you in place until you do, and they really over-explain it. And I don't think this is the right game for that kind of thing at all. So here's Mike saying, I found your loafers, but I'm still in control, so I can just walk straight past and wall jump up if I've heard it before, or if I can work it out myself. Similarly here, there was an invisible wall here where until you worked out how to aim while standing still and shot this thing, the wall, but if I can just pass it if I want to. There's no invisible wall anymore. You're going to see something interesting here, and I'm going to stop once you've seen it because we've got more surprises in store with that, but this is a little different. Yeah, there we go. You're expecting maybe the fucking Addams Family? So this guy's dialogue is hilarious. And as you can see, the nerd was expecting something else here. But this brings the story together so much now. Like AVGN 2's story used to be a big mess. And by changing a couple of characters around for various reasons, some more obvious than others, we've been able to really, really improve on the story of AVGN 1 and 2, bringing both of them together as a really nice, coherent story, similar to the original story. It's not completely gutted or anything like that, it's just that everything kind of comes together in a better way now. And you'll see some of the other improvements to AVGN 2 that have happened. And the map has been improved. The graphics have been... the original graphics were for the map. I didn't really have... I was very busy working on the original AVGN 2, and the map graphics I was a bit stuck on. So I hired a friend of mine called Josh, and he now works with Playground Games, the guys that make Forza Horizon, and he was great. And he did a great map. And when we got the new background artist in, the guys at Screamer did say, right, we want the map to be done up a bit as well. And so I said to I basically asked the artist to use Josh's pixel art and just do it up a little to just fit to match the newer backgrounds a little more. But I wanted him to really use use Josh's original outlines and stuff, because I loved what Josh did here. And let's look at this stage. So this is a stage which has changed the most out of any stage in the remake here, because most of the stages are pretty much as you remember, but this layout is quite different because we've had a lot of fun with this. Originally this stage was a little bit of a mess. It was just enemies flying at you from all angles where you tried to do awkward wall jumps. So I've widened it out a little bit so that you can see things going on. These new background graphics, they are, again, Josh did some of these buildings in the original, and Mount Fuji here, and again it's just Anthony has taken Josh's and just cleaned them up and enhanced them a little. But you can see stuff going on in the background over here. Yeah, this is our kaiju guys. We felt that we wanted a level that feels open enough that you can see the stuff that's going on. And you see, James Rolfe, our boy here, the angry video game nerd himself, the reason behind all of this, reason behind this empire of Cinemassacre. And these games are a celebration of his characters and other things about him as well. We have the Monster Madness levels, things like that. And one of the things about the original, these stages, Nerd Gaiden, the Japan stages, was, well, we had the idea, we were like, oh, we need to do a Japan-themed stage, right? So we could reference Ninja Gaiden and things like that, but it's like, just Japanese culture, Asian culture, because we had a bit of Hong Kong 97 in there originally as well and stuff, but it really didn't have anything to do with James. I mean, there was Monster Madness, there was Bored James stage, there was the sewer level, just because AVGN is all about poop humor, and all of this. But this particular level was just a video game trope, which had very little to do with Cinemassacre or James. But Cinemassacre famously has its Godzilla-thon series that it did, and it's well known that James and the other people at Cinemassacre adore just kaiju, Godzilla, giant robot fights. And this was Ryan at Screenwave's idea. I think it was Ryan. I think it was maybe a collaboration of everybody at Screenwave. They had the idea to have a kaiju battle go on in the background of this stage, and I loved the idea. So worked together with Anthony to get these guys looking good and to get them to animate. And the level, it's been redesigned so it opens out towards the end. So as you go, you get to see more and more of what's going on in the background in a way that is not too distracting. And once we get here, we can just watch. If we want, we can just watch this guy fight. Yeah. And they're not even bothered by the explosions. They just carry on fighting there in the background. And if you keep going, you'll get to see more kaiju fights throughout this stage. And that is awesome. I'm so pleased with that. I think that adds so much personality to this stage. The other two stages are laid out the same as they were, and the boss is the same, but they have the kaiju fights in the background. But that particular stage, we felt that we should really center around the kaiju fight and really reveal it as you go. Yeah. Let's just go in here and... yeah, so these backgrounds are more similar because, AVGN 2 looked better to begin with than 1, but we have added some extra parallax. You can see the more detailed sewer background behind the bricks there, where we've got holes where you can see through, and that's that background further back is Anthony's work as well. Main thing in this stage is that when you go underwater, you have the sound filter where the sound gets muffled as it would if you're underwater, which I always thought was a really cool thing. But an issue with it was that because they were so filtered, the third act is entirely underwater, and it had music written specifically for Act 3, which a lot of people really like, but you couldn't really hear it in the game because of the muffled. So what I have done is that when you're underwater now, the sound effects are still very, very muffled. Like, you can barely hear a gun there. But the music, while still muffled, much less so. Like, you can hear all the detail in the music still. It's all there. You don't really lose it anymore. So the sound and music have been filtered separately for different effect. Hungry Hungry Hippos. Not that Bored James ever reviewed Hungry Hungry Hippos, but it's that kind of thing. It's board games in general. So, we got Crossfire and things like that in there, but we also just got board games that weren't reviewed because... oh, shit. I messed that up. But, yeah, we didn't want to just be like, oh, here's only Inside Baseball, only things that you've seen in the episodes. There's new things, too. And this was the case in AVGN 1 and in AVGN 2. There are things that have been reviewed in AVGN and references to the show, but there's also just stuff that you remember from games, even stuff that James might not have even covered. Here's a Spike Balls here where there were some death blocks. So here's one instance of where I've used them. But we come to death blocks towards the end here to increase the challenge. But doesn't that feel so much better to get hit by a death block when there wasn't 1,000 of them, right? When I fell in just the wrong place. But also the fact that I got hit by it, I laughed. I didn't get frustrated, I laughed, right? And maybe that's just me, but I think we'll see more of that. We've seen more of it in the testers. We've seen more of it at PAX and at conventions when we're demoing the game. And I think that's come from because there isn't a lives counter. You don't get punished for these really harsh deaths. It doesn't just go, screw you, you can't play anymore after a certain amount. And I think you can get away with a lot more crazy difficulty if someone has as many chances as they need. But let's go to old school and you can see what I mean. We'll go over to remastered. I'm just skipping through this. Okay, so you can see that you get the original grey zapper in hard mode because, well, the orange is iconic. But some people, I remember at the time, we thought of the iconic orange zapper, and it's recognizable if it's orange. But we had some people play test it, or some people play it at events and go, well, the orange zapper isn't the original zapper. That's after the parents complained and they changed it to orange. It was originally grey, and if you're a real gamer, you'll have the grey one. Right? Well, I don't agree with the whole no true Scotsman real gamer thing, but I thought it would be a great idea to award anybody that wants to play on higher difficulties gets the old school zapper for the old school difficulty. And that was the way in the original game too. And here we are. We got the death blocks are back, and they kill you instantly. So this particular section, in this particular level, in fact, there is lots of and there's a 1-up. Look. So you get all this stuff as you would have before. But there was a few sections like this where there were large amounts of death blocks. Some people like it. I liked it at times. But yeah, there's a difference between rewarding and punishing. And I feel like you should be able to choose which of those you're in the mood for. But yeah, you still get your authentic AVGN experience. Damn it. But yeah, you all should recognize this screen as either something you loved or hated. I understand either way, but you can get this experience back if you want it back. So best of both worlds, really. And where things have changed, I think in pretty much every case they've changed for the better. And yeah, I really, really can't wait for you guys to get to play this on all of the consoles. It's a game. AVGN has always been a game that I'm so glad that I got to be the guy to make. And I was proud of, but I always had a little bit of a I wish I had done X and Y differently thing going on about it. And through this new version with Screenwave's help, I've really been able to turn it into something that I feel super proud of, that James and Mike and everybody at Cinemassacre feels super proud of, that everybody at Screenwave feels super proud of. It's a really nice all-in-one package of the AVGN 1 and 2 games, just improved in crazy ways, and you get bonus content too that, well, I don't want to spoil it, but I'm sure you'll know more about all the new stuff soon. Yeah, I'll see you guys around.